Have you ever noticed something strange? Two men can walk into the same room. One is taller, better looking, richer, perfectly dressed. The other looks completely ordinary. Yet somehow, when the night is over, it's the ordinary man she's thinking about. Not because he was the funniest, not because he spent the most money, not even because he tried harder. In fact, he barely tried at all. So what happened? Was it luck? Confidence? Or is there something happening beneath the surface that most men never see? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Attraction rarely begins with logic. It begins with emotion. And emotions don't always follow the rules we think they do. Millions of men spend years believing they need better looks, more money, a luxury car, expensive clothes, or perfect pickup lines. But despite all of that, many still watch women lose interest without understanding why. Meanwhile, another man with none of those advantages effortlessly becomes unforgettable. That isn't magic. It's psychology. Today, we're going to uncover one of the biggest misunderstandings about attraction. Not to manipulate anyone, not to play games, but to understand why certain people naturally become magnetic while others remain invisible. Because once you understand how human emotions really work, you stop chasing validation and start becoming someone people naturally gravitate toward. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No person is free who is not master of himself." Most men hear advice about attracting women. Very few hear advice about mastering themselves. And that's why they keep repeating the same mistakes. Here's something nobody tells you. People don't remember every conversation they've had. They don't remember every compliment they received, but they always remember how someone made them feel. Think about your own life. Can you remember every person you've met? Probably not. But you definitely remember the people who changed the way you felt. The teacher who believed in you. The friend who betrayed you. The stranger who inspired you. Emotions create memories. Logic rarely does. And attraction follows the exact same rule. Most men focus on saying the perfect words. The men who naturally stand out focus on creating unforgettable emotional experiences. That's a completely different game. Now, before we continue, let's make one thing absolutely clear. This video isn't about tricks. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's not about manipulating women. Healthy relationships are built on honesty, respect, and mutual choice, not psychological games. What we're discussing is human behavior, why confidence, emotional self-control, purpose, and mystery can make someone more memorable. These principles apply to people in general, not just romantic attraction. Because the strongest form of confidence is authenticity, and authenticity can never be faked for very long. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Read that again. Your life follows your mindset. If your thoughts constantly scream, "I hope she likes me," your behavior will quietly reveal insecurity. But when your mind says, "I'll see if we're actually compatible," everything changes. Your posture changes, your voice changes, your decisions change. Even your silence becomes more powerful. Because confidence isn't loud, confidence is calm. The strongest man in the room is rarely the one demanding attention. He's usually the one who doesn't need it. And strangely enough, that's exactly what attracts attention. Now here's where most men unknowingly sabotage themselves. The average man wakes up, checks her messages, waits for her reply, thinks about what to text, wonders if he said the wrong thing, changes his schedule to match hers, overthinks every conversation. Little by little, he makes her the center of his emotional world. He believes this proves affection, but psychologically, it often creates the opposite effect. When someone becomes too emotionally available too quickly, they unintentionally remove all curiosity. Human beings naturally appreciate what feels meaningful and earned. When everything is immediately available, its perceived value often decreases. This isn't only true in dating. It's true in business, friendships, luxury brands, even entertainment. The harder something is to replace, the more people carefully value it. Which brings us to the first psychological pattern almost nobody talks about. Number 1. People crave emotional escape. Let's forget dating for a moment. Imagine your normal day. The alarm rings, traffic, work, deadlines, emails, bills, the same conversations, the same routine, day after day. Now ask yourself, why do people binge watch TV shows until 3 a.m.? Why do millions become obsessed with movies, novels, concerts, sports, or travel? Because for a little while, they escape reality. Human beings aren't addicted to entertainment. They're addicted to emotional experiences. And relationships often follow the same pattern. People remember those who make ordinary moments feel different. Not because they're perfect, but because they create emotions that break routine. This doesn't mean creating chaos. It doesn't mean acting toxic. It means bringing curiosity, energy, playfulness, and emotional variety into interactions. Think about someone you've always enjoyed talking to. Was it because they agreed with everything you said? Probably not. It was because conversations with them never felt boring. They challenged your thinking, made you laugh, surprised you, shared unusual stories, made ordinary moments feel alive. That's emotional contrast. Most men accidentally become predictable. Every message sounds the same, every compliment sounds the same, every conversation follows the exact same pattern. Good morning, how was your day? Good night. Repeat. Predictability creates comfort, but comfort alone rarely creates excitement. Excitement comes from curiosity, from not always knowing what's coming next. Imagine reading a mystery novel where you already know every chapter before opening the book. Would you keep reading? Of course not. Your brain loses interest the moment surprise disappears. Human psychology works remarkably similarly. Our brains release more attention toward experiences that contain uncertainty, novelty, or emotional contrast. That's why people remember unexpected moments far longer than routine ones. The goal isn't to become confusing. The goal is to become interesting. Someone whose conversations feel refreshing. Someone who has passions, stories, dreams, ideas, purpose. Because people are naturally drawn toward those who make life feel bigger than yesterday. Epictetus believed we cannot control other people's feelings, but we can control the energy we bring into every interaction. That's real influence. Not forcing attraction, but becoming the kind of person whose presence leaves a lasting emotional impression. And here's the fascinating part. Once someone begins associating you with positive emotional experiences, they often start thinking about you even when you're not around. Not because you demanded attention, but because your presence interrupted the monotony of everyday life. And that is far more powerful than any pickup line ever invented. But emotional excitement alone isn't enough. There's another psychological principle that quietly determines whether someone respects you or slowly begins taking you for granted. And surprisingly, most men destroy it without even realizing they're doing it. By now, you've probably realized something important. Attraction isn't simply about being attractive. It's about becoming memorable. And being memorable has very little to do with perfection. It has everything to do with how people experience you. But here's where almost every man makes a mistake. He believes that if he's kind enough, patient enough, available enough, eventually she'll recognize his value. Sounds reasonable, yet reality often tells a different story. Have you ever heard a man say, "I did everything right, but she still lost interest"? Maybe you've even said it yourself. He answered every text immediately, bought thoughtful gifts, always adjusted his schedule, never argued, never disagreed. He believed love meant constant sacrifice. Then one day, she slowly pulled away. He couldn't understand why. He wasn't toxic, he wasn't rude, he wasn't dishonest. So what happened? The answer isn't always about chemistry. Sometimes it's about psychology. Because appreciation and attraction don't always grow under the same conditions. One grows through kindness, the other also needs respect. And respect begins with something most people completely misunderstand. Number 2.
People respect those who respect themselves. Think about the people you naturally admire: a successful entrepreneur, a great coach, a respected leader, a trusted friend. What do they all have in common? They have boundaries. They don't apologize for having standards. They don't abandon their priorities just because someone demands attention. And strangely enough, people usually admire them even more because of it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, convince everyone, seek approval, please everyone. He simply said, be the person. That's exactly what boundaries communicate. They quietly tell the world, I know who I am. Unfortunately, many men confuse boundaries with arrogance. They're completely different.
At this point, you've probably noticed a pattern. The men who naturally stand out aren't trying the hardest. They're simply living differently. They aren't obsessed with impressing everyone. They aren't constantly asking for validation. And they certainly aren't changing who they are just to keep someone's attention. Instead, they possess something much rarer: direction. Because direction creates confidence, and confidence creates trust. But here's something most people never realize. People don't just admire confidence. They admire people who know where they're going. That's why the next psychological principle is so powerful. Weakness number 4. People naturally follow those who have direction. Look throughout history. Who inspired millions? The people who waited for permission, or the people who carried a clear vision? Great leaders weren't perfect. Many weren't even the smartest people in the room. But they had something others desperately needed: certainty. Human beings are naturally drawn towards certainty during uncertainty. When life becomes confusing, people instinctively trust those who remain calm. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during wars, political chaos, and personal tragedy. Yet he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Think about how powerful that idea really is. The strongest leader isn't the loudest. He's the calmest. The same principle quietly appears inside relationships. Imagine 2 different situations. A couple finishes dinner. One man asks, "So, what do you want to do now?" His uncertainty immediately shifts responsibility onto the other person. Now imagine another man smiling calmly. "I know a place you'll enjoy. Let's go." Notice something important. He's not controlling. He's not demanding. He's simply decisive. And decisiveness creates emotional safety. Because uncertainty exhausts people. Confidence relaxes them. Leadership has never been about dominance. Real leadership begins with responsibility, taking initiative, making decisions, accepting consequences. Most people think confidence means speaking loudly. In reality, confidence often sounds surprisingly quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. Epictetus believed that no one can truly lead others until they first learn to govern themselves. That means controlling your emotions before trying to influence anyone else's. Think about arguments. One person raises their voice, the other remains calm. Who appears stronger? Almost always the calm one. Because emotional control communicates strength without saying a single word. People instinctively trust those who remain composed under pressure. That's true in business, friendships, families, and relationships. Now here's something fascinating. Leadership isn't attractive because people enjoy being controlled. It's attractive because direction reduces uncertainty. Imagine boarding an airplane. Halfway through the flight, the captain suddenly says, "I'm honestly not sure where we're going." How would everyone react? Panic. Now imagine the captain speaking calmly. "We've encountered turbulence, but everything is under control. Same situation, completely different emotional response. Why? Because certainty is contagious. The exact same psychology quietly operates inside everyday relationships. People feel emotionally safer around individuals who remain grounded when life becomes unpredictable. Not perfect, grounded. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body." That's why adversity often reveals true character. Anyone can appear confident when life is easy. Real confidence appears when life becomes uncomfortable. And that's exactly the kind of confidence people naturally respect. But leadership alone still isn't enough, because there's one final lesson that quietly separates admired men from men who become emotionally dependent. And once you understand this, everything you've learned so far suddenly connects. Weakness number 5. Nobody wants to become someone else's entire world. Here's one of the biggest myths modern dating teaches. If you truly love someone, make them your whole world. It sounds romantic. Movies celebrate it. Songs glorify it. Social media rewards it. But real life often tells a different story. Because healthy love grows between two complete people, not one complete person and one emotionally dependent person. Imagine meeting someone who has absolutely nothing happening in their life except you. No hobbies, no purpose, no close friends, no personal goals. Every hour revolves around your attention. At first, it may feel flattering. Eventually, it becomes exhausting. Because no human being can successfully carry another human being's entire emotional happiness. That's far too much pressure. Psychologists call this emotional dependency, and it quietly destroys countless relationships. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say your happiness depends entirely on another person, because lasting fulfillment always begins within. Now imagine another man. He enjoys spending time with someone he cares about, but he also trains every morning, builds his career, reads, travels, learns, creates, strengthens friendships, continues growing. If a relationship enters his life, wonderful. If it doesn't, he still wakes up excited about tomorrow. Which life feels more attractive? The answer is obvious. Purpose creates emotional stability, and emotional stability is deeply attractive. This doesn't mean relationships aren't important. They absolutely are. But relationships flourish when two people add value to each other's lives, rather than expecting one person to provide everything. Think about the happiest couples you've ever met. Usually, both people continue growing individually. They support each other's ambitions. They celebrate each other's progress. Neither asks the other to abandon their dreams, because love should expand your life, not replace it. Epictetus believed external things can enrich life, but they should never become the foundation of inner peace. That lesson becomes incredibly valuable in relationships. When your identity depends entirely on another person's approval, fear quietly controls your decisions. You become afraid to disagree, afraid to set boundaries, afraid they'll leave. Ironically, that fear often pushes people away. But when your happiness comes from purpose, growth, character, and self-respect, everything changes. You stop trying to keep people. You simply become someone worth keeping. That's a completely different mindset. Imagine walking into every conversation without needing validation, without needing approval, without trying to impress anyone, just showing up honestly, confidently, comfortably. That energy cannot be manufactured. It comes from building a meaningful life, and meaningful lives naturally attract meaningful people. Seneca wrote,
Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Notice kindness, not desperation. There's a huge difference. Kindness comes from abundance. Desperation comes from fear. One creates respect. The other quietly destroys it. So here's the lesson hidden beneath everything we've discussed. People aren't attracted to perfection. They're attracted to emotional strength. They're attracted to calmness during chaos, purpose during uncertainty, confidence without arrogance, kindness without neediness, leadership without control. And that's why the most respected people never spend their lives chasing attention. They're too busy building a life that naturally earns it. But here's the biggest question of all. How do you actually apply these ideas in everyday life? How do you develop calm confidence without pretending? How do you create healthy attraction without playing manipulative games? And how do you become the kind of man people naturally respect the moment you walk into a room? Those answers bring everything together. So, after everything we've discussed, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Attraction isn't built by pretending to be someone else. It begins the moment you stop chasing approval and start building yourself. Think back to the 5 principles we've explored. First, create emotional experiences instead of predictable conversations. People remember how you make them feel far longer than what you say. Second, protect your boundaries. Respect
is never demanded. It is earned by the standards you refuse to compromise. Third, leave room for curiosity. You don't have to reveal every thought or emotion immediately. Let people discover who you are over time. Fourth, lead your own life. Be decisive. Have direction. A man who knows where he's going naturally earns trust from the people around him. And finally, never make another person the center of your entire world. Invite them into a life that already has purpose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are filled with insecurity, your actions will eventually reveal it. But if your thoughts are filled with purpose, discipline, and self-respect, people will notice that too. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because confidence has a quiet presence that doesn't need attention. Remember, healthy attraction is never about controlling someone else's mind. It's about becoming someone whose character naturally earns admiration. Real confidence doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't fear rejection. It simply continues moving forward. Because a man with purpose understands something most people never do. Rejection isn't the end of your story. It's simply proof that not every path is meant for you. As Seneca wisely said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." So prepare yourself. Strengthen your character. Protect your peace. Keep learning. Keep growing. And let your actions speak louder than your words. Because at the end of the day, the most attractive quality any person can possess isn't perfect looks or endless confidence. It's inner stability. The kind that remains calm during uncertainty. The kind that refuses to abandon its values. The kind that doesn't need constant validation to know its worth. Become that person. And you'll never have to convince anyone of your value. They'll see it for themselves. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos on psychology, stoicism, and self-mastery. Thanks for watching. And remember, the strongest man isn't the one who controls others. It's the one who has learned to control himself. See you in the next video.